the whole Liam Kumar Day effect, not really happened.
Nigel couldn't make it.
Yeah.
I've rang up Mendenhall, he said he could make it.
Don't dig this hole. Phil, credit to the guy, he always manages to do well what he has, but he is a shocking person on that. You guys got a trophy? No.
It was pre-event.
No, my life from Rashad Mendenhall.
Right, you go. I'm a tag, Jack! I'm a fucking tag!
Hello and welcome to another episode of the LOC Report. Back again, we're now in the double digits and it's trade deadline day today. It's all going on, but most importantly, as Viv expressed before the show, I can't wait to see what version of the co-host we get today. How's it going, Chris?
It's going well. It's going very well. It's going probably better than last week because I know there's pent-up anger from 3 weeks straight. But yeah, I'm back for more. We are back for more.
We are.
And yeah, it's going to be a fun show. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Good. So yeah, without further ado, let's kick it off then and get straight into the last of the single-digit weeks recap. So last week, I suppose in one way you could call it a water is wet week, which will become apparent why in a minute, because kind of, from an LOC perspective at least, you know, I don't think we really saw any surprising results too much. It was kind of like, yeah, you know, that was kind of what expected to happen. There was, however, some quite ridiculous defensive scores in the starting lineups and just generally on the free agency from the defenses as well, some of which were quite pivotal, which we'll see obviously when we get to each particular game. But yeah, let's fully get into the reviews then with the review jingle where, where is that? There it is. Here we go. Okay, so starting off with the marquee matchup from last week, we had Ixan's on Great Scott. Great Scott was not only leading up the Portsmouth division entering this one, but the number one overall seed with a 6-2 record, facing off against Ixan at 4-4. Once again, they found themselves in a bit of a cornered animal game, must-win game really to stay alive in what is quite it's a top-heavy, but it is still a competitive playoff race this year. Ixan with a big win in a big spot once again, second time they've done that this season, 108 to 77, and we both picked Ixan last week, Chris, and I locked Ixan up as well in a big spot too. So coming through with the gutsy lock here as well. 108 to 77. Moves Ixan to 5-4. Great Scott is now 6-3, and we'll see obviously what impact that has on the playoff picture later on. And in terms of history against these two, this is the second time they've faced each other, obviously with Great Scott being new to the league, so it's 1-1 a split series now. But yeah, I mean, this keeps Ben's season alive, doesn't it, Chris?
It does, and we talked about that last week when we were going through the forkings or not forkings, and yes, we said that this game would be pretty pivotal to Ben's chances. And I think that again, you know, it's amazing when you have games like this where you can really set you back on track, because you know 5-4 at this point of the season is none too bad. It gives you a foothold to go forward in. Yeah. You know, and we know Ben's pretty prolific with getting to that 500 record. But said that as long as certain components of that team were still alive, then he had a chance. And we look there and say lots of double-digit scores, and you know, it's definitely a place you want to be at this time of the season. For Jeff, it's a sad but true. The quarterback let him down. Obviously, 2 points from the QB. Is not the ideal situation to find yourself in, despite the fact that there were some nice scores in there. But yeah, it just wasn't quite enough. I don't think even with a quarterback score, obviously, that was still a put 10 points short. Yeah. So yeah, a good win for Ben there. Must win clutch game, and got himself in there. So congratulations.
Yeah, no, it does, as you said, it does kind of feel a bit like Ixan is maybe turning the corner now. Obviously, previously in the power rankings, I put them quite high up, and I dropped them right down when the articles kind of came back, and for good reason, because yeah, Ben's team has not been as punchy as it typically is, but Jones, Eckler do seem like they're obviously healthy and starting to deliver now. The supporting cast is kind of looking a bit better too. So yeah, absolutely. And on the other side, like you say, like Great Scott did have a 5-game win streak. They obviously had some bye weeks, and obviously Trevor Lawrence was their quarterback, but they had to pivot off that this week. So it was kind of a logical conclusion to the win streak, if you will. But yeah, like you say, White's been a bright spot, certainly in the last week, but maybe he's coming on a bit more. He's been on his team obviously all season. Chase is obviously a guy that's going to have better days too. But I don't know, I just get the feeling with Great Scott that we see, again, we talk about bucking the trend, and we'll come on to them later, where you have these teams that look good and it just doesn't quite happen for them. You also have these teams where it's a really good roster, but it just has the feel like it's going to be let down by the quarterback in a big spot at some point in the season, and it's just going to completely cost them. And that is what Great Scott feels like for me, because we'll see what they've done on the waiver wire and everything in a minute. As I said, they did have Trevor Lawrence, but that is definitely the Achilles heel of this team, isn't it, Chris?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And, I have a team like that as well, and or at least I hope so until this week. And yeah, it does. Without that solid 20 points, you're nowhere really. It's very difficult to be able to build a score. Yeah,
so that's it for this one. So we both get on a good foot in terms of the pick'em and the lock. So we'll go to our next game then, which was the B Bowl, bucking the trend against Bedetonators. We both picked Bedetonators for this one, and we are 2 for 2 on the week so far, Chris. As Zombie FC motors on, winning 122-85. Zombie FC does motor on, Chris, but quarterback and special teams and defense papering over a lot of the cracks here. I've got a stat for you. Between quarterback, kicker, and defense, they combined for 77 of the Detonators, 122 points in week 9, which is a 63% mark.
It's huge. I think that's what takes you into the ascendancy when you have that sort of scoring from your kicker and defense particularly. But yeah, other than that, there are obviously a few solid but unspectacular yardage days there for Swift and Ford. A couple of touchdowns obviously helped it. Those 15 points from Deontay Johnson Thursday night last week was definitely useful. But yes, to say that you got 90% of bucking the trend's points with 3 players, of which 2 of them aren't really players, but you think you kicker in defense. I know Justin Tucker Hall of Fame, but yeah, that's pretty freakish. For Mike, actually, it wasn't that bad a day. Again, it's just testament to his really in the sense that he's walked into the buzzsaw one too many times. In fact, I'm surprised he's got any limbs.
Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, well, yeah. Talk about the buzzsaw. Yeah, you're right. This was definitely a worthy buzzsaw game. So there it is. Yep, there goes Mike's last hand. It's off. It's on the floor.
I'm just anything left at this point. But yeah, and I'm not going to completely slag it off because yes, Chris Godwin's not had a great day there, and Tua had a subpar day in Germany. But yeah, this could have been a 90-point week for sure. And Josh Jacobs have been a bit resurgent of late, as is Saquon. You look at a guy like Hopkins who's going to have on and off days. So he's going to have better games not playing. That front. So yeah, look, for me, my team is a perfectly acceptable LOC team that has been scored on one too many times.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's nothing to hang your head about there, but yeah, it just seems to be just a points magnet all year.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, now 1-8 and well, and as you said, it's not a 1-8 roster. It just isn't. So it's unfortunate. But Bedetonators are 6-3. Credit to them, obviously skinning through. And to be fair, with the Browns D, like we talked about, it was a high concentration of points between defense, kicker, and quarterback. Ollie did snag the Browns on Sunday before they kicked off, which I was going to do the very same thing, but he beat me there, and he was absolutely right too, because it was a plum matchup and he came through in a big spot. But yeah, you kind of mentioned Ollie doesn't have any star skill position players, because I don't think Devontae Adams is a star in this Raiders team or in 2020. I think he is still a star, but in terms of a fantasy perspective, he's not. But they have got a lot of serviceable players still and good contributors. Whereas, like you said, for Mike's team, it's just a case of they've got a good core, but just in any given week, it's just one or two guys just seem to let them down, and that's obviously been the difference. You talk about Jacobs and Barkley have had a bit of resurgence as well. They have, but again, obviously these are the kind of two linchpins for him. And given now they're both playing, with the Giants playing a third string quarterback for an undetermined amount of time, and obviously Jacobs on the Raiders, they had a nice post McDaniels bump last week, but that doesn't typically last, and this team has been pretty bad offensively since that. So again, with Aiden O'Connell being the start now especially, you wonder how much he can lean on those two. So yeah, could be a rough end of the season still to come for Bucking the Trend, but wouldn't surprise us equally obviously if they do pick up some wins. History of this matchup all time now as well. But Detonators are now 4-4 against Bucking the Trend, so with that they even the series. So we'll go on to the next game, which was Gridiron Gang against Thomas and Friends, which is Ross's teams. This was a Founder Bowl, AFC East Bowl. I picked Ross for this one, you picked me, Chris, and you were the correct one in this one. I would say I was bang on the money with my assessment of what Ross would do. I thought he would. I definitely could see this kind of solid week from him. I just did not expect my team to necessarily go this far. And if you look at the chart, actually, it was officially a Monday night comeback. I needed 3 points by my defense on Monday night, and they go ahead and get 31 to give me the highest score on the week. Go figure. Funny how that goes. So I've now got the longest active winning streak with Great Scott's loss in the LOC at 3 wins. That's tied longest actually. And yeah, another game with crazy defensive points, and it did prove to be the difference. But also, Chris, I believe you owe me, you have some massive cojones comment, because I only went and started the fantasy troll himself, Taysom Hill, and it came through in a big spot.
There he is. There he is indeed, and yeah. And I'm glad you did, because otherwise it's pretty messy reading for your skill positions there, I'm not going to lie.
Beyond Amari Cooper, yep. And let's ignore the fact I played him over Tank Dell, who did actually kind of outscore him a little bit, but still.
We'll live with that. But yes, your 31 points on defense absolutely is the difference here between the two teams. I think that it's obviously a solid week if you can pull that out of the hat and have the balls to play tasting. Then fair enough. For Ross, he picked up Dak Prescott earlier in the year. Mm-hmm. He's run with him since. Dak's been really good this year. It's been surprising. And definitely gives him a foundation every week. As we said earlier on, those teams that don't have a quarterback, it's a problem, but those that do always have a chance. You throw those those skill positions that he's got into the mix, and they're actually pretty good. I know that Kelsey hasn't been as prolific this season, and neither is Andrews for the most part, but they're solid enough players that you can rely on each and every one of them each week. Higgins is questionable, may not play this week, so it'd be interesting to see the depth that Ross can bring in. But for you, to score 125 points in any given week with a couple of pops and a decent defensive score, you've got to be quite happy with that, I'd have thought, at this point of the year.
Definitely. I didn't even have McCaffrey and Montgomery in this game either, which is the craziest thing from my perspective. So, and I really do feel bad for Ross, because we don't want that jingle, but we do want the buzzsaw back, because I really do feel for Ross, because this is the second time I've played him now this season, and both times I've been the highest scoring team on the week. So he keeps coming against you. We've seen a lot of this year. Quite like. The scoring's been very high for certain teams and very low for others. But Ross has been one of those. I've been impressed with the consistency of the auto draft this year. So true. It has delivered a better team for him. And like you say, again, he's gone from a skill position, like kind of not being quite barren, to not having a quarterback. Now, as you say, Prescott's come through. I think even Watson's coming along as well. And as you say, Jonathan Taylor comes in, Higgins is there, and some of the Titans get going, and Diggs, obviously. And yeah, it's definitely a good team that you can certainly see being a berserker down the stretch and causing some noise. The history of this matchup, just to tie this off in a bow, Gridiron Gang is now 8-7 all time against Ross. So with that and the win earlier, I now take the lead in the series, and obviously myself and Ollie both won as well, so I remain at the top of the Winchester division, but on points only. So we'll go to the next game now, which is Pakistan against Forge Flyers. We both picked Pat in this one, and you're still a perfect 4-0, Chris. Meanwhile, I'm at 3-1, so we had a good job picking the ones. We did go pretty much with all the favourites this weekend. As I said, that is how it turned out. 117 to 79. Chris, CJ Stroud's pretty good at football. I gave you the statistic about Ollie's points from quarterback, kicker, and defense, and the percentage of that. This is Pat's. Pat got 93 points combined from quarterback, kicker, and defense, which accounted for 79% of his total score.
Yeah, absolutely right. He needed it as well because, outside of that, his skill positions were nasty.
Yeah.
Nasty. But when you have 51 points from your QB and 2 QB scores, give or take, from your defense and kicker, you simply don't need it. You have effectively 4 QBs on your team, and that's what wins you weeks. So congratulations there to yes, he who was bold enough to play CJ Stroud and shall stick with CJ Stroud, no doubt.
I don't know. You haven't checked his lineup this week because the only reason he was playing Stroud was because Goff was on a bye. So.
I don't know why you...
Any minute now it should come back. There we go. There's the reconnection. Hopefully we'll get Chris back shortly as well. Let me go on to here. Accept. And there we go. Apologies for this, dear listeners. There we go. Chris is there. Apologies about that, Chris. I think my internet just dropped briefly for a second there, so we'll just get you.
Absolutely. We should have the test card out.
Test
program.
So we'll get Chris back in the window there. There we go, and then we'll go back to the game over here as well. So I will just check the stream is still going as well. Yeah, we're back on. Good. So sorry about that. Cool. So back to this game then. We'll see what Pat ends up doing with CJ Stroud. But yeah, as you said, it did definitely paper over some cracks, and you look at actually, I think, at Pat's team at the moment, and I think it is a bit worrying times for Pat because let's go down his place here. So I think Olave and Kamara, they've definitely got a Taysom Hill problem at the moment, and I think that's kind of eaten into their upside a bit. More, obviously, he needs Fields back, really, but Bagent's been okay, but he's obviously not providing the same floor for more that he had done. Jonathan Taylor's obviously seized the backfield from Moss, so he's kind of taken a back step. Walker's just not quite been the same as he was at the start of the season. He's been a bit banged up. Zach Charbonnet's healthy and maybe taking a bit of work away now there as well. So you look to the bench, it's not like there's anything really coming to the rescue there. Najee Harris has improved, which is nice to see, so maybe he becomes a bit more of an option, but outside of that, it could be a bit worrying times for Pat, Chris.
Yeah, for a team that was so bombastic in the midweeks, I suppose, to now it's quite different. But saying that, we are picking apart a team that scored 117 points on the week.
But when 52 of that comes from your quarterback and the kicker and special teams.
I get that. But say you have to be there to start them anyway, and if this is the start of a run, then fine. But yes, I agree. You look at those 3 running backs, and that is a shaky ground to be on. I'm not too bad. I'm not as quite as down as receivers because we've seen both of them have good days. But yeah, right now, I think 2 ineffectual running backs, but yeah, if you can still get production out of everybody else, then fantastic. For me, it's much of a muchness again, really. Say another week carrying a player when there were points to be had on the bench, couldn't have won the game, of course. But yes, outside of those running backs there. A few players on bye as well. It was a difficult one, but but I haven't looked like winning for weeks, so that's not a complete surprise to me.
And I think that just the kind of best thing to really highlight this game for you was that even your kicker got injured in this one. Daniel Fairbairn left the game injured, so it doesn't happen often, but unfortunately it happened to you. So, yep. So Pat goes to 7-2. We'll see what that means in terms of the overall position in second, because with obviously the Great Scott loss, that could mean Pat could be the standalone 7-2 team. But we'll quickly dovetail back to the history of this matchup now, which is 3-8 in favour of Pat. So he is firmly your bogey team at this point, Chris. So we'll go on to the next game then, which was You Are Gold against Tom's Tyrants, which is a Winchester Bowl. We both picked Tom's Tyrants in this one, and we both dropped it. Your first L of the week and my second, but it was a fairly close one, to be honest, 85-74. And Ollie, you are just spared the scumbag music by getting over the 80-point mark. Otherwise, it would have been out. So You Are Gold moves up to 7-2 as well. Tom's Tyrants dropped to 3-6. And then let's just take a look at my notes here. So to be fair, it wasn't the best outing, but it was a good stream of Derek Carr. And even though, again, crazy defensive points on the week, the Colts D absolutely won this game for Coach Gardner Meadows. It was also a good stream. So credit is where credit is due for that. And Ollie sneakily actually has the tied longest winning streak of 3 games in a row now as well, Chris.
I mean, that's outside of the QB and the defense, that is a horrible, horrible line. We've always said that if by and large double QB points wins you weeks, well, this has absolutely been the case. Again, Tom's team is the same as the other side, really. In fact, it's probably better without the defensive points.
Mm-hmm.
I completely agree with your assessment of that defensive stream. Credit where credit's due, it's a stream, has won the week for You Are Gold, and it carries on. The streak carries on, and could it last the whole season? Both him and Pat, who do have, by the way, comfortably the lowest points in the entire league. They're going to battle it out for supremacy there in the Slamson division. So I'm looking forward to see which one of them can be scored against least to get through the play, to be honest.
All I want to see is by the end of the season, will Pat and Ollie combined have less points conceded than Mike?
It's this rate. You never know. Look at that. There's a give or take a 300-point difference between Pat and Mike. So
crazy.
That's absurd. Absolutely absurd. But hey. You've got to play the luck where you can, and both of them are trucking their way to the playoffs quite nicely at this point. One of them is obviously going to be obviously, perhaps not obviously, but because there's enough teams in contention still. But one's definitely going to be in the hunt for the true wild card, I think, in this, simply because the divisionally. They're not going to get a lot of opposition there, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. It's crazy. You look at all this team, and you wonder, how is it 7-2? Because AJ Brown's been good, but then everybody else, every skill position on this team, there's some okay ones, and some that will definitely have the weeks. But you just look at it, it's like, this is not a 7-2 team, and it's not like they've been blessed with quarterback either. Ollie's done a good job again. To be fair to him with streaming, obviously Fields was kind of up and down at the start of the year, but it's just crazy. And then look into the other side of the board for Tom again. We were thinking at one point, you could see this classic late surge from Tom's Tyrants. But it's kind of just gone the other way. This team has just kind of petered out. But Burrows, obviously, he's had his resurgence. But the rest of them, Thielen, Allen, James Cook, probably to a lesser extent Brian Robinson, they've all kind of cooled off a bit from the fairly hot start that they had. And Cup's just not had the impetus, the impact that Tom needed him to coming back from injury. It's not helped, obviously, now that Matthew Stafford's got that thumb injury either. And I think Tom's Tyrants they are what they are at this point. I don't think there's really much more you can say.
Well, unfortunately not. Yeah, Australia just in a bit of a rut, and haven't really managed to get anything going all year. I know how that feels. Whatever you do, you just can't seem to rely on production from anybody. It's a problem. So you feel for teams like that. There are a few of them out there this year.
Yeah.
But yes, let's join the Fort Club.
Indeed, it's going to be an interesting race for the bottom as well. I mean, we'll see in a second the interesting playoff race, but it's a very split league. We'll come to that in a bit. The history of this matchup: Tom's Tyrants now are 6-7 all time against your Gold, so your Gold takes the lead in the series. And then the last game of the week. You didn't think you were going to get 1 week without it, did you? I did not predict it coming from this team though. The Dream Team survives a 70 to 60 point bout with Bare Necessities. Bare Necessities now owners of the longest losing streak in the LOC at 5 games, and Viv winning back to back, and with the great Scott Lawson, his win, he takes the lead in the division. Talk about failing upwards with a 70 point week. And again, defensive points again making the difference. 24 points from the Raiders of all teams, Chris. Only other player on the team over 8 points was CD Lamb with 17.
Yeah, I mean, across the board here, this is a pretty horrendous line. Defensive points have bailed Viv out massively. I know CD Lamb's had a good game, but yeah, you've got to trade one of those for your QB points. So all round, 70 points really with 2 producers. Ain't what you want to see this time of the year, but Bare Necessities, five games on the bounce is a loss. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Usually, you see Dave's team being really consistent. I thought Lamar was going to go off this season, but he's been a real disappointment throughout the course of the year. And since Cup's come back, Nakura hasn't looked nearly as dominant. Maybe he's been found out a bit. I don't know, but fair play to Mixon and Edwards. They made it exciting, but aside of that. Stinker.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, missed the golden opportunity there. In a week where there was very high D scores, it might be this continued play of the Bills D that made the difference really, because Bills D is depleted and they were going into Cincinnati facing a pretty hot Bengals team, and that was obviously the difference there. And also Arthur Smith killing any potential Bijan Robinson being a good player, or a good fantasy player at least. You look at Viv's team, it is a 70 point week, but we know this is Viv's classic Dream Team side. They absolutely have a 70 point week in their locker, but you wouldn't be surprised to see the very same team go off for 150 points the next week, so it's just kind of
I hope they don't, by the way. I hope they don't.
By the way, I'm playing all this music. There is one other thing I need to play. I picked Bare Necessities in this one, but you locked the Dream Team and you got that right. So I think I was 3-3 on the week. I think you were 4-2, or maybe even 5-1 in the end. So pretty good going there.
1-1 we'll take it.
The history of this matchup all time, Bare Necessities are now 12-10 all time against the Dream Team. So we'll just finish off the last week's slate with the around the league statty bit here. So the Dream Team earned the win this week despite not scoring, starting a top 15 scoring quarterback yet. Herbert didn't even get over 10 points, but obviously it didn't matter as we saw. But they've beaten their projected score 4 weeks in a row, so nice job by Ollie. Chris, you have also done the same accolade, so well done. Ross's team, he's beat his projected score 3 weeks in a row, so lots of that going around. Teams have won 50% of the time when starting the league's top scoring quarterback of the week, 3-3. That was obviously CJ Stroud this week. I'm on a 3-game win streak, as is your Gold, and Tom's Tyrants fell short of their projected score for the 3rd straight week. So that kind of highlights Tom's struggles there. If you're keeping track of the pick'em on the season, I'm 26 for 16. Chris, you are 23 for 19. All time, I'm 90 for 63. You're 75 for 50. In terms of the locks, I'm 4-3 on the season. You're 4-2. And all time, I'm 14-12, and you're 12-6. So you are good at the lock game. I'm a bit better at the pick'em, it seems. So we'll go on to with the recaps done, we'll go on to the league news. And as always, we'll start off with the key injuries for the league news. So to begin with, we have T. Higgins. You mentioned it in the recap. He suffered a hamstring injury in practice this week. He has not practiced since, including today. So I'd say it's looking very unlikely at this point that he'll suit up for Ross's team. James Conner, he could return from the IR for UR Gold. I think that would be pretty impactful for UR Gold, don't you think, Chris, after what we just saw in terms of his skill positions?
Indeed.
Yeah. Jamar Chase, he suffered a back injury in the game last week. He does not appear to be sounding he's getting along too well with it, but I think he's been practicing on a limited basis, so he'll be one to check for Great Scott. Come Sunday, Dallas Goddard, he suffered a forearm injury that's going to knock him out for at least a few weeks, also for Great Scott. Cam Akers, he tore Achilles again, unfortunately his other Achilles to the other one, well, I suppose fortunately, but having dual Achilles tears, not ideal for a running back, so unfortunately that could mean his career is season done for bucking the trend as well. And also for bucking the trend, KJ Osborne suffered quite a gnarly, and I believe the internet may have gone again. Oh no, Chris is back, there we go. I think we're in and out. It's fine. It's okay. KJ Osborne, he suffered a pretty gnarly concussion on the weekend, so he'll probably miss this week, but probably should hopefully be back for the next week. We'll go on to the transactions. So start off with this one. Great Scott, they added Trevor Lawrence and dropped Daniel Jones, obviously injured. He was just a bye-week fill-in. Anyway, spent $6 for the luxury of doing so. So Great Scott gets their quarterback, Chris. I was a bit surprised not anyone else was really in for Trevor Lawrence, because I know he's not been brilliant, but there are a few QB needy teams in the league at the moment.
Maybe he's been a bit meh all year.
He has.
Coming out, be a bit different, but yeah, he's not been as exciting this year. I will grant you, but solid enough, but not very exciting. I
mean, yeah, it's solid is the word, because all but one game he has ranged basically between 16-17 and like 21-22. Remarkable consistency. I mean, you can build a roster around that and bank on those points, but yeah, as you say, not a great deal of upside so far at least. The Dream Team added Keaton Mitchell, and again, he was another guy that I was a bit more surprised more people went in on after he blew up. Granted, only on 9 carries in a blowout win, but I think it was 138 yards or something like that and a touchdown. So Dream Team adds him for $9, dropping Quentin Johnston. What do you make of that ad, Chris?
It's a crowded backfield there.
It is.
You just simply don't know what they're going to use week in, week out. It's worth a $9 flyer, but I can see why people were hesitant to invest.
Yeah, and I didn't drop this in the injury bit to kind of preempt it, but he also maybe tweaked his hamstring or something in practice this week as well. He did have a hamstring injury earlier in the season, so it could be just maybe related to rest or something like that. But yeah, definitely want to monitor. Chris, so Trevor Lawrence, he got it for $6. Keaton Mitchell, he got it for $9. Would you rather have those or Joshua Dobbs for $10?
Whoa! I mean, in fairness to Joshua Dobbs, I mean, he's the talk of all the land, and lands far away from that one. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure many people were in for him, I got to say. But yeah, he's in an offense that will allow him to thrive. Whether or not he has the weapons, I don't know. Whether or not he can to push on with a little bit more practice, who knows? But yeah, I fair enough. You've got some budget to use this time of the year.
Yeah, so just to cut, so this was Ixan's ad for the $10, because Patrick Mahomes is on the bye week. I mean, the fact that it's a bye-week fill-in, again, makes the $10 even that much more perplexing for me. So I think he is second in rushing yards among quarterbacks, only behind Lamar Jackson so far this season. Make of that what you will. Obviously, he's played, as you kind of alluded to, with a pretty barren Cardinals team. So going to the Vikings, he does get a bit of an upgrade. Obviously, we'll get Justin Jefferson back at some point. But if we view this through the lens that, given that Ben, as we know, as Patrick Mahomes, is probably a bye-week fill-in, he plays the Saints this week. So yeah, curious. We'll come on to that in a second when we do the previews, but yeah. And then last one, so I mentioned the trade deadline is today, so yeah, got to get your trading business done today if you want to. We have had a trade, the first trade of the season, and it involves both of us, conveniently, Chris, because I traded Kareem Hunt to you for Tyler Lockett. So, I mean, it seems kind of weird, but do you want to give feedback on our own trade?
Yeah, absolutely. I still see what it was trade. Yeah, I mean, I'm one of the third running back option. Damian Pierce hasn't really been that kick on option that I expected this year. Hunt to me is a flyer, bit of a red zone target. I need touchdowns in my team, and that's the way to do it. For me, Lockett's been okay in patches, but not so okay in others. I'm not sure he's been fully fit all year, but I think your need was more for a receiver and mine was for a running back. So they're the trade wiz, and I'm happy with it. And though I'm not going to play Hunt this week, there will be times in the next few where I think it's going to be a much better matchup for him. So I'm looking forward to his prospects.
Yeah, definitely. Both of them have fairly good schedules down the stretch, and like you say, I mean, we know what my running back room is. But I definitely was in more of a need of a receiver, and not to peek ahead too much, but I have been checking the schedules of my main receivers, and they've got some tricky ones. So again, it was just kind of a needs basis, like you say. Very even trade. I like I said to you, I actually had to take a few hours just to think about it, because I was like, God, this is so even. Is it actually even worth it? But from a roster construction perspective, that was kind of the need. As you say, the same was for you, because you like loading up on the running backs too. So there you go. Well, that may well be the only trade. We'll see, but at least we got one in this year. So we'll go on to the standing stats and milestones now. So let's start off with the milestones. Just the one today, which is unfortunately for you, Chris. You have notched your 100th regular season loss now. There you go.
Yes.
So,
your club.
Yeah, you're in the club. Welcome to it. Drinks are over there. So we'll look at the standings and stats now. So starting off from a league-wide perspective, Pakistan becomes the number 1 overall seed with the Great Scott loss. There are two teams with a 7-2 record. They both reside within the Southampton division, but Pakistan just edging out UR Gold on points. So UR Gold 7-2 there as well, and then 3-6 and 2-7 Tom Sorensen and Forge Flies. In the Southampton division, in the Portsmouth division, the Dream Team, they jump up to the top there, 6-3, leapfrogging Great Scott after their loss last week. So they're obviously ahead of them on points as well. Great Scott at 6-3, and then obviously Ixan's win over Great Scott keeps this division a bit closer as well. He moves to 5-4 right behind them, and then we have Bare Necessities at 3-6. And then the Winchester division, no change there from a standings perspective. Gridiron Gang still at the top of 6-3, tied with Badetnes at 6-3, but obviously Gridiron Gang, the highest scoring team, takes precedence on that. And then Thomas and Friends bucking the trend at 1-8. If we look to the playoff picture in the overall, so at the moment the division winners are obviously Pakistan, Gridiron Gang and the Dream Team. UR Gold would be the traditional wild card, and then Detonators would be the highest scoring team wild card. So this, Chris, creates this situation. Great Scott was the number 1 overall seed last week and is now not even in the playoff seedings. That is how close it is in the playoff race at the top.
Half and half split, man. Look at that.
Well, this was the next thing I was going to come on to. We don't actually, typically there's usually a bit of a gamut. There's a spread from the bad to the middle to the worst. This year you have the kind of top end teams and you have the bottom end teams. The only one really in the middle ground is Ixan at 5-4. Everybody else is either 6-3 and above, or 3-6 and below. it's crazy.
Crazy split. It's like it is a 2-tier league this year, which is something that we haven't seen for quite some time. But at the top, to have 6 teams really vying for it is
7 teams, I would say. I mean, but I know Ixan's behind all the other, but 5-4, he's still firmly in the mix.
He's not out.
Yeah, no. Looking at points for it, 2 teams over 900 points at the moment. Mine, which is only a few off of 1,000, and the Dream Team just over 900. Then we have a couple in the higher reaches of the 800s there. All of them are the playoff teams, or the playoff hunting teams, really. Then you get to the bottom side. Obviously, UR Gold, despite the 7-2 record, he is only 6th in points scored. And then, again, no real surprises looking down the list here. We look to the against side of the column, and as you said, Chris, bucking the trend at 953 points conceded. Pakistan hasn't even conceded 700 yet. UR Gold is just a hair over 700 as well. So over 250 points separate the highest and lowest. It's pretty crazy. So again, not surprising to see 2 of the most losing teams. There are 2 teams who have had over 900 points conceded as well, and they've only got a 1-8 record and 2-7 record respectively. You're not far behind, Chris. And then we get some of the playoff teams, interestingly. Obviously obviously in the mid 800 range, but obviously we've been generating some points to kind of bat some of that away. We'll go on to the breakdown. My team is still top of the breakdown. You can see I had another 11-0 week last week. I've had 3 in the last 6 weeks, and then 10-1 week and an 8-3 record there as well. 78-21 on the season, so would have won 4/5 basically of all the games if I played everyone this season. Next best is Detonators at 66-33, so they would have won 2/3 of the time against everyone. He was the second highest scoring team last week, and again, you can see he's had some pretty good scores there. And then Pakistan, the dream team, they're kind of above the kind of middle ground there, the closer to the 2/3 metric. Then you kind of get the middle ground again. We've still got some of the playoff teams here, but obviously much more near the median. So obviously in UR Gold's case, again, they're punching it ahead a bit there. But interestingly, despite Pat's obviously low points against, he's still third in this metric, so is still fairly good measure for his league position. Ben, obviously one of the other playoff hopefuls, he's actually got a losing record on the season, so he's a bit fortunate to have that 5-4 record. And then again, unsurprising, the other teams that we're seeing down the bottom here as well. But it's all fairly even race at the bottom. You can see there's only 5 wins separating the 8th team from the 12th team there. On to the coach score. We have a new leader in this category, which is UR Gold, and since I obviously had Tank Dell on my bench last week, and as you said, Chris had a few poor performers in my roster, so that moves me off the top. Around the top, it's kind of the top 5 teams are around the 80, kind of 90 point mark. Then you get some more that kind of dip into the hundreds, and then again we get to the bottom. You're leading this category, Chris. Most points left on the bench, 190 through 9 weeks, which is down near 20 a week, just under 20 a week still. Interesting though, because sorry, go on. Yeah.
I could have been there in the 900s with you, but
you could.
I chose not to be. So.
You could. It's interesting because you look at it and my team is the highest scoring team. I've done a fairly good job of maximising. UR Gold's team isn't one of the closer ones to the highest scoring, but again, he's kind of really pushing the envelope because obviously there's not a lot of points on the bench there, not an overly high scoring team, so he's really punching above the median a little bit. But then you look at teams like Pakistan, Great Scott, who are in 10th and 11th in this metric, are firmly playoff teams, but they've obviously left more points on the bench, so could have potentially even been a bit better for them. So it is a bit of an interesting picture there. If you put it all together with the true ranking, it mostly kind of resembles obviously the playoff teams. Unsurprisingly, the top 7 is exactly the same, but as you can see, obviously in a slightly different order, but it is very close, so understandable there. So that is your milestone standings and stats. Yeah, as I said, trade deadline is today. Nobody is on the trade block as far as I know. Check out the power rankings, they have landed, so let's put those out around the week. Go ahead and read those. So with all that, we'll go on to debate corner. For that, we need John. Where are you, John? Order. He's busy feeding people in a homeless shelter at the moment, while Suella Braverman laughs at him and trolls him online for doing that. But good old John. Well, yeah, that's
pretty much part of the course for her, isn't it?
Yeah. What she didn't tell him was that she put battery and acid in all the food that he's giving out. So
yeah, that's right. Wicked Witch of Fareham. Just get voted out the next election, mate. You see it. People don't like her.
No, Cruella.
Somewhere else.
Yeah, Cruella indeed. So the debate corner for this week, Chris. We'll go back to the standings. There are 7 teams in playoff contention at the moment. All but one of them either has a 6-3 and 7 or 7-2 record. So it's a very close race. My question to you, Chris: which one of these 7 playoff contention teams is most likely to be the regular season champion at this point?
Well, I think you have to look at general resilience of the team. And I always like to see a team that scores high and is against high as well, because they can ride the waves out of the season. And they've got the potential to beat everybody. So you look there and there's a few teams that you can see. I think Great Scott, we've seen there. We've seen Viv's team do really rather well against that in that metric as well. Ollie Badette's team too, but you look at your team, who's got over 900 points. It's the 3rd or 4th highest scored against in the entire league. Mm-hmm. Strong roster. It's got some real blue chip plays. You look at Allen and McCaffrey. particularly, but also some big time players. You look at Waddle, even Cooper on his day, and I think that your team's going to go for it, mate. I think it's there.
Okay.
I know it's a toughie down there. So you've got Ollie with you, but at the same time, I think that you've got a beatable division. Certainly, other two guys in the division at the moment, so they've floundering a little bit. And I know that you see Pat Stan and you are gold there above you, but in this metric here, but I can't see their luck lasting as long as it will. So yeah, I think that that's a great way to look at a team and how it's going to go. Is by whether it can score high and be scored against high and still come out the other side. But we've seen plenty of teams like that. But yours is there and there, and I can't really go past that at the moment. That's very important for me to see going forward.
Sure. Cool. Thank you. Yeah, that would mark my first ever regular season win. I've never done that before. I mean, last year was the first time I won a division. So yeah, completely new ground. Yeah. I think if you're looking at between my team and Viv's team is probably the most. Yeah, probably the most likely, given that we're two of the highest scoring teams. But you go back to it, Pat Stan, you are gold. They both have one of those extra wins already on us. You talk about a bit of a softer division, perhaps. Their division, no offense to your team, Chris, but just looking in terms of pure wins and losses, theirs is just as soft, really. And obviously, we've seen maybe for Pat, because Ollie has obviously gotten away with it in terms of the points against scoring forward-wise. They're obviously not too significantly different. To be fair, obviously the points against isn't either, but I don't know. One of these beats each other. Obviously, I think they've got one game between. Yeah, we've had 4 divisional games because I've got a game left against Ollie and Mike in my division. So I'm pretty sure that those two have to play each other at one point in the season as well. So one of those will automatically have one extra win still, obviously compared to any of the 6-3 teams or Ben. We are where are we? Week 10, so five games left now. Yeah, that's right, isn't it? So at this point, having a 1 game buffer and effectively that extra win that either of them will have by beating the other, that's sort of like a bit of a 2 game buffer over the 6-3 teams at the moment. So you're kind of saying that obviously one of the other teams, 6-3 teams, that has to win at least 3 or more, and that would obviously require Pat Stan, your goal, to then lose all of their other games as well. I don't know. I completely agree. They have rode their luck a little bit, but at the moment, percentage likelihood probably still with Pat Stan, you are gold, but yeah, wouldn't be surprising at all if one of my team or Reviv could sneak up there as well. So there you go, that's the debate corner for this week. So we will go on to the marquee matchup then, Chris. So on the docket for this week, we are going back out of the divisions after having a divisional game last week. So we have Gridiron Gang against Tom's Tyrants, which is a Founder Bowl and the Corona Bowl 3 rematch. We have the Dream Team against Forge Flyers. We have You Are Gold against Bucking the Trend. Pat Stan against Great Scott. Bare Necessities against Thomas and Friends, which is Ross's team in a Founder Bowl. And Bededna is against Ixan. There are a couple of games in here that are obviously intriguing from a playoff perspective. Pat Stan against Great Scott and Bededna is an Ixan. 2 teams that are in playoff seeds or chasing playoffs there. Chris, what direction do you want to go for the marquee matchup this week?
Well, I like to have a clean slate. I think this week, for, as you quite rightly said, for playoff implications alone and to drag it back into the race, I think Bedetna as an Ixan can be really interesting because first of all they've got both their quarterbacks trying to buy, and yeah, this is a really pivotal week again for both teams pushing on. So let's go there.
Cool. Here we go then. Marquee matchup for week 10. 6-3 Bedetna's take on the 5-4 Ixan side here in Week 10's marquee matchup. Bedetna is currently in the points forward wildcard spot. Ixan currently on the outside looking in. But Ixan are projected to win this one 83-76, which could potentially see them get back into a playoff spot as early as next week. Looking down the lineups, as Chris said, bye weeks and otherwise problems for both of these teams, so it's going to make it an interesting matchup for the Detonators. Jen Hurst is on a bye, so Will Levis comes from the waiver wire into the starting lineup. In terms of the starting roster, I think DeAndre Swift heads to the bench in favour of, I think it might be Dalton Kincaid.
Might be.
Yeah, Dalton Kincaid. So he's going with the 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end, and 3 wide receivers. On the other side of the board for Ixan, Patrick Mahomes on a bye as well. So Josh Dobbs comes from the waiver wire into the starting lineup. And then in terms of roster changes, I think Alexander Mattison comes in favour of Jacoby Myers. I think the rest is the same. So he is going with the 30 personnel, 3 running backs, 2 wide receivers. The history of this matchup all time. But Detonators are 8-8 against Ixan all time. So it's an even series, Chris. How even will this game be?
Well, this is an absolute quarterback off here. I mean, two relatively proven, but he's unproven in that offense against that defense he's played this week. That's hard work.
He's only just learned his receivers' names.
Yeah, indeed. So, the guy's obviously a complete genius. I mean, he's a bit of a freak in terms of what he can remember and what he can process.
Yeah.
It's quite well known that he's off to NASA once he's done with the NFL, as long as he doesn't get too badly concussed in that time. Whilst Will Levis, as a Titans fan, it's lovely to see some actual positive play for once from your quarterback. But again, going away to Tampa Bay, not necessarily where you want to be. I also think that Ollie's matchups aren't that great all round. You look at Adams is a stinky matchup against the Jets. Johnson against Green Bay at home. You say it's been that is a spotty one. Collins is questionable against Cincinnati again. Are we going to see Stroud spreading it around like he has done recently? 4 against Baltimore's hateful, especially away from home. And then, Kincaid at home to Denver is just a bit meh here and there. Browns D against Baltimore. Well, Browns D did well last week, but, again, difficult place to go for any team, I think. And as we see on the bench, bye week hell. Whilst at the same time, Ben's rolling out all the starters from last week, plus Madison, obviously. But I feel a little bit better, but not that much better against that. So everything in Tennessee's okay. I think that's a good matchup. With Dotson going across the country playing Seattle in Seattle, I'm not certain on that one. Green Bay ground game against Pittsburgh with that front difficult. Eckler against Detroit. Well, I think it's better that he's at home. Matt against New Orleans, who have been pretty decent. So, to me, I think, and he also plays defense against his quarterback as well, which is always an interesting play. For me, this has got the absolute low score scrap over it. I think that quarterback score is going to be huge in this. But I have no faith in Ollie's skill positions at all. I have just about enough faith in Ben's skill positions to get him over the line. So I think it will be an Ixan win, but it will be a very, very, very close affair. Yeah,
no, I think you're right. When you were going down and looking at Ollie's team, I was like, oh yeah, I'm definitely locking up Ben's team again this week. And then you went on to Ben's team, I looked at it well, and I was like, yeah, maybe not. But like you say, it's a weird one, because like you say, if Will Levis hits this week, he could shred that Buccaneers team.
For sure.
It's like you say, but the skill positions are kind of that iffy. Like Kincaid's okay, Collins is okay. I think Johnson are probably okay. I'm not sure if Jair Alexander's playing or not. But like you say, Adams is, he's going up against Sauce Gardner. Jerome Ford against Baltimore, horrendous. And like you say, Browns D against Baltimore as well. I know they did fairly well in the first matchup with Baltimore, but this is a different Baltimore team now. That was in Cleveland. We've just seen Baltimore absolutely pants two fairly good teams before as well in the last couple of weeks. So, Yeah, I don't like it. And then you go to the other side. I still don't understand the Josh Dobbs ad. I know he's been running and stuff, but he's still learning the playbook. New Orleans has been a tough gig. I know they're at home. I think that there were probably better options out there. But then you've got Evans against Tennessee. Dotson against Seattle could be okay. He's been a bit more involved, but I think Curtis Samuel is back. Like you say, Jones and Eckler, they've been coming on strong, which you absolutely like to see, and they're obviously key players, but they've got two fairly tough matchups as well. Detroit's been really stingy against the run all year. I know Eckler's a bit more of that jitterbug back, so he's a bit more immune from a traditional bad run defense matchup. And Pittsburgh, I think they're getting a little bit healthier on defense again as well. And then Mattison, he's obviously not been great. Akers is gone, so workload profiles to come back. But again, the Saints matchup's a pretty tough one as well. Like you say, I'm going to go with Ixan as well. But yeah, this game is gritty, fight for your life, playoff race written all over it. So yeah, from an injury perspective, you say Collins is a bit banged up. I think it might have been an ankle injury. He was limited Wednesday, did not practice yesterday, so definitely one to monitor for Ollie. For Ben, Jones, questionable. Again, it's just load management because he's seemingly back to good health now there. So we'll go on to the next game then, which is Gridiron Gang against Tom's Tyrants. We're in Bowl 3 rematch here. Gridiron Gang at 6-3 facing off against the 3-6 Tom's Tyrants. Projections say this one's going to go in favour of Gridiron Gang, 86-74. 4 points on the board, courtesy of Adam Thielen for Tom's Tyrants as well. So let's take a look down for Gridiron Gang. New trade acquisition, Tyler Lockett comes into the lineup, as does Tank Dell, as does Christian McCaffrey, as does David Montgomery. 4 changes in the lineup this week because Jalen Waddle and Isaiah Pacheco are on a bye. Amari Cooper is facing Baltimore, and is that right? Yeah, I can't even remember who I started last week. Life is a blur, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm fielding the the 21 personnel this week, 2 running backs. Oh, Kareem Hunt was the other one I started, of course, who's gone to Christie. I'm fielding 21 personnel this week, 2 running backs, a tight end, and 2 receivers. On the other side of the board for Tom's Tyrants, well, part of the projection is because the team isn't fully updated. Cooper Kupp is on a bye at the moment, and so there are no other roster changes at the moment. So technically, he's still fielding the 20 personnel, 2 running backs, 2 receivers. He will probably bring in maybe Garrett Wilson or George Pickens, it would be my guess, or possibly Drake London if he's back, so that would hold true there as well. The history of this matchup all time, let's see here, Tom's Tyrants, they're 8-8, so again this is a split series between the two all time. Chris, tell me about this game, anything interesting?
I think that if this would have been the marquee matchup had it not been such a one-sided year for you, I can't see. I can see Tom's where he can have the routes to victory for sure. It requires some miracles to happen, but yeah, it's there. So let's start with the top. I think Joe Burrow against Houston's okay. I think playing him okay.
He might be down, I think I've actually just seen T. Higgins has been ruled out. Sorry to cut in. He's been ruled out, and then right. Chase is a bit banged up. Sorry, go on if you're going to get to that.
So go and pick up Tyler Boyd, whoever it is.
Your gold's already all over it.
Absolutely, there we go. Brilliant. I'm glad to hear it. Someone's on the ball. So yes, down some receivers, but I got no issue with that. I think that he can still elevate himself above that, especially at home. And then you got Allen against Detroit, which not to say that that's going to be a tough game, but I think it's one that's going to have plenty of offense. Cook against that porous Denver Broncos run defense, which is horrendous. And then Robinson against Seattle, which again I'm not so hot on. But Steelers against Green Bay, I am. I like that. I think they can beat up on Jordan Love, especially at home. Mm-hmm. But the other side, you just can't look past the names. Allen, McCaffrey, Montgomery, who's back after the bye, fresh. The Jets versus Vegas could be hilariously bad for Vegas. Taysom Hill, who's in there just scoring points like the weasel he is, like the fantasy weasel. Tank Dell is the number one option, it seems, in that offense in terms of receivers at the moment. Lockett coming in, and he's definitely on a plus matchup as well with Metcalf being a bit banged up. Mm-hmm. I just can't look past your team this week, and I think that though Tom's got the root, he's got 4 points from Thielen, which isn't that great. Anyone who replaces Cup isn't going to be nearly as effective.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take some what we saw from last week. Some of the teams, a heroic defensive effort, a quarterback doing well, and Allen and Cook doing extremely well to get him across the line. But there is not a chance in hell that your team losing to that.
No, yeah, and I obviously last week did see the route to victory for Ross's team. Obviously, Ross had a fairly good week, but no, this week I'm hopefully quite confident that my team will take this one. So I'm picking my team here as well. Like you say, Tom's team is absolutely capable of a good week. He has got some nice players there, but just looking at my team, it's hopefully, unless a few bad weeks combined, this should just be enough to overpower it. Do you want to giggle? Do you want to see what players that Taysom Hill has outscored this season? Because I was just randomly looking at it yesterday, and it was absolutely hilarious. He has scored 72 points, I think it is, on the year so far. Where is he? He's somewhere around here. There you go, 72.58. He has outscored Tank Down, M1, Jalen Waddle, Gabe Davis. He's outscored Marquise Hollywood Brown. He's outscored Cortland Sutton, Christian Kirk. He's outscored Eckler. Granted, Eckler's missed some time. Jameer Gibbs, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, George Kittle, Rashee Rice. He's outscored Tyler Lockett, Najee Harris, Calvin Ridley, DK Metcalf. He's outscored some. You look at it, and it's all been really. Over the last kind of 4 or something weeks, it's kind of gone, which is the even more crazier thing. Because the reason I picked it up, and I kind of said it to you last week, is because they're genuinely using him a bit differently now. He's always been the gadget type player, but it's like, well, they've kind of always had that there in the locker and wheeled it out kind of randomly. They've actually kind of made it a bit of a staple of the offense now. And look, it's still Taysom Hill. It could absolutely end at any minute, and it would surprise no one. But it seems to kind of be working for them. Do you want the craziest stat? He led the Saints in carries last week.
As I say, fantasy weasel ruins everyone's weeks, apart from the people that pick him up.
Yeah, lucky me. And he's playing over Amari Cooper this week, of all people, who's outscored on this. The Dream Team takes on Fudge Flyers here, looking to stay ahead in the Portsmouth division. They are projected to win this one with a 6-3 record at 94-90 against 2-7. Fudge Flyers on a 3-game losing streak. Looking down the lineups for the Dream Team, I believe they are unchanged at the moment. So yeah, it's still going with the 20 personnel, 2 running backs and 3 wide receivers on the other side of the board for Fudge Flyers. Kyler Murray's in the starting lineup over Sam Howell, making his first appearance for the LOC and NFL season. Dalton Schultz comes into the lineup as well, as does Brandon Ayuk, come back from bye, and Calvin Ridley, dropping all of. You've probably dropped the players actually, haven't you, Chris? Just look at some of them.
Yeah, Lockett traded.
Yeah.
Sam Howell dropped. Mara Douglas got dropped from the bench.
Yeah.
Who else has got Michael Thomas gone from the team?
Yes.
And Mac comes in as the kicker for the very injured Katie Fair.
There you go. Thank you, Chris. So, you are going with the 21 personnel this week. 2 running backs, tight end, and 2 wide receivers. The history of this matchup all time, Chris, Fudge Flyers, you are 7-8 against the Dream Team. So lots of close historical games on the docket for this week. Chris, do you smell an upset here at all?
I do. I'm quietly confident this week. That quiet confidence may turn into loud confidence come Sunday, but we shall see. No, I like the fact that I can be done with my disappointment by the end of Sunday night. That's good. But no, I think that everybody here there is in a plus matchup this week, and I am thrilled about it. Absolutely thrilled about it. What am I thrilled about? Well, I'm thrilled about the on paper, but also. Yeah, I'm looking down at some key points there. Finally, I've got a quarterback back. I know I had Kyler Murray last year; he wasn't great, but I'm going to blame that on Cliff. I'm not going to blame that on him. So he could come back this season. If
the new COD sucks this year, apparently. So you've not got that to worry about either.
Well, that's good. The fact that we saw Dobbs running around a lot. If Murray can run around a lot too, which he's well known for. it's what he's best at, then I'm feeling good. And Atlanta absolutely suck on defense at the moment against quarterbacks, which is great. Dalton Schultz came off a 17-point week last week playing Cincinnati, but I'm led to believe they are the 32nd best team, which means they are the number one worst team against tight ends in all of professional US football. And then Ayuk and Ridley, who have been a bit mixed bag this season, I have to say, playing against each other in the same game. Neither of them have been. Neither of the defenses there. San Francisco defense is good, but their secondary is not that great. I want to see, especially off the bye, Ridley being used a bit more. Derrick Henry's the man, and then Ramondre Stevenson, who was risen from the dead last week. I think they realised how good he actually is. Going to put on a show for the Germans, but I'm going to say best till last. In week 1, the Cowboys played the Giants with their full-strength roster and scored 46 points on defense. This week, the Giants come in disarray with a third-string quarterback that nobody really knows against that same Cowboys defense, and they're going to get killed. Genuinely could be a big score.
Yeah. Do you want to know what? So I think I've said to you before, I'm in a pick and pull thing with some work colleagues and stuff. The spread in that pick and pull for the Cowboys victory, I think, is minus 16.5 or minus 17.5 this week.
I am absolutely not shocked by that.
They are in my number one spot, the 7-pointer, and I have picked the Cowboys.
Yeah, I don't blame you. So anyone who's bet on the Giants this week needs to either watch the games or have their...
I think I'm going to have to, while you're speaking about it, I'm going to bring up the money line odds for the Cowboys to win, because it's basically like you get your money back. That's it.
Yeah, that's right. It's better than it's evens, or it's the equivalent of better than evens, isn't it? It's just ridiculous. So yeah, the Giants are going to go there and get absolutely killed.
Yeah,
no question.
The money line is this is in decimal terms. The one again. So 1.066 for every pound you bet, you get a princely 6 pence back. I think. Yeah.
Huge. I really think that's a good investment. So,
yeah,
definitely worth a tenner on.
Yeah, to
get your 60p back. Yeah. On the other side, I do think that this team's going to be pretty punchy, but you look at that Chargers Detroit game. I think that's going to be pretty punchy. I think that the Washington Seattle game is going to be punchy, but at the same time, I have less faith in Washington playing away from home. I think CeeDee Lamb's ability to score could be squashed by the fact that the defense is going to do all the scoring. At least I hope anyway. But he's been fantastic recently, as is Dak. Justice for Gabe Davis playing this week.
After a 0 last week. He has an interesting home road split thing going on this season. We can bring it up, actually.
Yeah. He's playing at home. It just feels good. He just jumps on his tables at the beginning of the game. He doesn't like playing away. Straight. Etienne against the San Francisco front is going to be a bit of a demolition job, I think. And then Breece Hall, who has been the offense against the Raiders, should continue being so. I think that's a game for them. But at the same time, that Jets D could nullify that Raiders offense to the point where it doesn't really matter anyway. Raiders playing the Jets on the other side on defense. Again, I think the Jets have been pretty defense friendly this year, at least fact-wise. So that could be good, but certainly not as good as the Cowboys on the other side. Look, I think this is the week to win. This is the week to win, but you can't not the fact that the Dream Team are the second highest scoring team in the league. Yeah, they haven't got Hill this week. They're not playing the 49ers D. And I can't bet against. Look, Kyler Murray's the absolute key for me. If I don't have the consistent quarterback play again, then I'm. So for me, Dream Team it is. I know they scored 70 points last week with pretty much the same team. But as you said in the preamble of the last bit, they can score 70 points one week, 140 the next week, the same players. It's just that kind of team. So I'm going to go with them. But I am feeling, for the first time in quite a long time, a bit more positive about my team.
I'm glad to hear that. And you know what, Chris? So am I, because I'm locking it up. Fudge Fries to take this one in a big upset here. Because, like you said, the matchups are nice. Kyler Murray is the risk here because first game back, but I completely agree. He's at home. Arthur Smith sucks. He just sucks. He's a bad coach. His team plays bad football. So and Jonathan Gannon, I think, has been a pretty good coach so far. They're getting James Conner back, so that's going to help him too. The only bad matchup you have really is actually Derrick Henry against Tampa. That run defense is bad. You're not getting away from Derrick Henry. He can still have a serviceable game and plunge in on the goal line maybe if Levis is obviously shredding them. So no problems there. And yeah, Viv's team, like you say, it's hot and cold. It can be, and there aren't necessarily the best of matchups there. Like you say, some of those players, they're not potentially going to get an opportunity, or they need to be part of the scoring early, or they're not going to have the opportunity to do the scoring. So yeah, for me, I just I'm confident enough. I can see you getting the win, and I want to go with the bold lock, vibing it with Taysom Hill and everything. So why not? But we know my lock record is not as good as yours, so but it's a winning record at least. So and my pick'em's good. I'm picking you, so that counts, right? So yeah. Okay. So injury wise in this game, Keaton Mitchell, he did have that limited tag with the hamstring, so definitely want to check there. As you said, Dameon Pierce, I think he's still not practicing, or he maybe has come back limited with that ankle, but looking doubtful. And I think Demario Douglas also has an ankle injury, and he's looking pretty iffy as well. Kyler Murray has been activated now, and yes, he will play on Sunday. So we'll go to the next game now then. You are gold take on bucking the trend here. You are gold at 7-2, looking to keep up in the playoff race and the division. 3-game winning streak, taking on 1-8. Bucking the trend, but bucking the trend are projected to get their second win of the season here, 87-83. Looking down the lineups, Baker Mayfield comes in for bucking the trend in favour of Tua Tagovailoa, who was on a bye. Elsewhere, I think Michael Pittman comes in, dropping Devontae Smith to the bench on bye there as well. So he is going with the 20 personnel this week, 2 running backs, 3 receivers. On the other side of the board for your goal, Brock Purdy, he comes back from bye and replaces Derek Carr, who goes to the bench, and Rashid Shaheed and Sam Laporte also come in favour of AJ Brown, and the player he has probably dropped now. Apologies, I don't remember who was playing last week. James Conner there is on reserve, so he could maybe work his way into the lineup, but isn't there at the moment. So he's going with the 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end, and 3 wide receivers. The history of this matchup all time, bucking the trend, are 3-1 against your gold. So it's a case of one of the lowest conceding teams, Chris, against one of the highest conceding teams. What will happen in this one?
Well, something's got to give, isn't it? I don't think that you are Gold's curse can't carry on with that level of skill position. You're not telling me that any of those guys are going to be, especially if Metcalf is banged up as well. You're not telling me that any of those guys are going to make that much of a difference. And if Metcalf can't go, I guess Tyler Boyd comes in. But even if that's the case, there's a lot of waiver wire pickups and just random guys that surely can't sustain a win. Addison's going to get shut down as the number 1 receiver, and in any case, he's still got Josh Dobbs thrown to him. Pollard's been relatively ineffective in the last few games. Shaheed's been good, but only when he scored an 80-yard touchdown. You know, Sam Laporta, I mean, yeah, fair enough. He's scored 11 points before his bye week, but and what? Do that this week? You say, I don't see it. Purdy against Jacksonville is pretty bang average, to be quite honest. And I know he's a rock solid real life quarterback, but from a fantasy perspective, over the last 4 weeks before the bye, it's a big 30-point week against Dallas, but after that 9, 14, and 20. So yeah, it's not really setting the world alight. I don't see it. Whilst for bucking the trend again, he's got a lot of guys on pretty terrible offenses. I'm not gonna lie, you know. You look there, Baker's not in a, he's okay. As in playing Tennessee, who's defensively hasn't been great, and they've traded away their best players, especially their best safety. Hopkins was great in the first game with Levis. Big 30-point game, came down it against Pittsburgh, but look, I think if there's one game that might be, it might be back to that sort of level. It's going to be this one. Pittman I know it's away from home, but everyone's away from home in Germany. But yeah, so random stuff can happen. He's been much better with Minshew, I have to say, in the last few weeks. Goblin we don't know really, but say it's a bit up and down. But I think he's due for a bit of a bounce back. And then Barkley and Jacobs, where really they are the offense, but they're in terrible defensive matchups. Terrible. I think Jacobs is maybe a little bit better, but Barkley's just going to get killed.
Yeah.
And then the Bengals against Houston. Well, Houston are coming off a demolition job last week, and so they seem to be burning everything in their path. But so they've been a relatively solid defense against better opposition, that's for sure. So I just can't see where it is for you, our guy. I think you're right. He's been extremely lucky with how other people have scored. For Mike, it could be one of those games again, but I'm going to trust the fact that they've got just the I don't know, maybe the better overall package, but only just. It's not going to be a great game, this one, but I trust just about their receiving core and a bit of Baker to get them across the line, where I've got absolutely zero faith any of those skill positions on the other side.
Yeah, no, I'm going back in the trend here as well. It feels a bit weird, but especially when obviously Mike Sim isn't quite at its full normal strength. But yeah, they've just got the marginally better players. He's got some of the better matchups as well, I think, to be fair. It wouldn't surprise me at all if your goal did win this game, because they could have an okay week, because they could cobble some bits together here and there, but yeah, it just feels like a very gross game. Surely the curse has to end at some point, and this feels like a just place for Mike to get some positive regression in terms of his wins, losses this season. And yeah, because we don't want to see Mike end up with a 1-13 record and set the new record for the worst win-loss record of all time. No, yeah. So, no, I'm going back in the trend as well. Injury-wise, DK Metcalf, yes, so he practiced Wednesday, didn't practice Thursday with a hip injury, which was the same as the week before, but then he did end up suiting up, I think. So one to check, but the Seahawks love doing shenanigans with their injury reports. So James Conner, as I say, probably will play this week. He's trending in that direction, but yeah, definitely one to check. Fields obviously didn't play last week, but should be back next week. Osborne probably will miss the game this week. It typically does. A player, if they get a concussion, they do miss 1 week. And obviously his hit was particularly nasty. So there you go. On to our next game then. And we have another potential playoff bout anyway here. Pakistan against Great Scott. Pakistan leading the league, taking the number 1 seed from Great Scott, who's no longer in a playoff berth after their loss last week. But they could be after this week, because they're projected to win 95-86. The score as it stands is 15-6 as well. Taking a look down the lineups, and that was in favour of Great Scott, by the way. Pakistan, so they got 6 points courtesy of DJ Moore on Thursday Night Football. Najee Harris comes into the starting lineup as well in favour of Zach Moss, so they are fielding the 30 personnel, 3 running backs and 2 receivers. They also have Jared Goff in over CJ Stroud as well, come back from a bye. On the other side of the board for Great Scott, Trevor Lawrence is back on the team after his bye week and into the starting quarterback spot in favour of Daniel Jones. And then elsewhere, Amon-Ra St. Brown comes into the lineup from bye. Donta Foreman, I think, is in as well, as is Jameer Gibbs from bye as well, sending Oliver Raheem Mostert and Chuba Hubbard to the bench, and potentially someone that he's since dropped also. Actually, Foreman may have been playing last week. Anyway, he's also going with the third personnel, 3 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and yeah, has already got 15 points from Donta Foreman on Thursday Night Football. The history of this matchup all time, this is probably actually the first time these two have played each other. So, Chris, will Great Scott put another eye in the playoff race works here, or?
I mean, it certainly helps with a 15-point advantage. I would say a 10-point advantage, but 15 points from Foreman, which is it's a great start to your week. Yeah, I think he's a spot of bother if Chase doesn't go, because looking on the bench, there isn't an unbelievable amount of.
Well, he doesn't have a receiver or a tight end to sub in that we would have to.
He does have a second defense, which he can quite happily roll. So it's another one I pet hate. Why? Yeah, so yeah, you can get rid of that. But anyway, you're getting a rando from the waiver wire, which isn't ideal. But there's going to be someone who can probably plug and play there. Yeah. Look, this team's probably as solid as it gets at the moment. In terms of that band, I think Lawrence, as we spoke earlier on, is a solid quarterback. Yes, it's tough opposition, in San Francisco. They seem to be absolutely beefing themselves up on defense at the moment. We just had a Chase Young, of course, so that's not the kind of guy you want to see playing for a unit like that. Some Brown playing Goff on the other side. I think that's a good, smart and tactical play. White's been good recently, and Gibbs has been very up and down, especially now Montgomery's back. Plus the fact that the Packers are playing Pittsburgh. The Packers haven't been that great, but I think against that position, away from home, I just think it's a bit meh. Just not that great. On the other side, you look at that. Goff's been brought back in again, and I've been talking about this. And this doesn't happen. I always say this could be a track meet. Well, I hope it is. This Detroit Chargers game. It's got all the makings of such a thing. But then you look down, and we spent it on New Orleans. Don't really know what they are at the moment. Olave's been solid, but not great. As we spoke about, even Hill's overtaken in terms of points, but in terms of consistent points, it's not been too bad, I suppose. You get Kamara firing again, because that's that mid-round sort of like week 5 to week 8. So week 5, 15, week 6, 10 points, week 7, 17, week 8, 23, and then it fell off last week. So he's been a real focal point of the offense and of Pat's team, and you need to get him going again. If there's a game from Najee Harris, it's probably this one. They seem to be using him a little bit more. Kenneth Walker's probably going to be better at home against that Washington defense that has been gutted through trade, and the Ravens D playing Cleveland at home. I don't think it really matters what quarterback's there at the moment. That Ravens front is elite. So for me, it's Pat Stan all the way. I know that there's a 10-point head start there, but I think that he can probably make that back. Quarterback's a very, very one this week, but again, defensive score could be a thing, and I think the Ravens could be there. They've just about shaded it on skill positions for me, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a closer game and Great Scott doing it. But I like Pat's team, and he has had a tremendous amount of luck. But also, this is the kind of game which I think that will show the league that he is legit to go on and do good things this year. Sure.
I'm actually going to go the other way in this one. I'm going to go with Great Scott, but I think this, like you kind of spotlighted this one and the Bedette-Zigzag game for the marquee matchup, and I think this one could be obviously we know that one other one's going to be a gritty low scorer, but in terms of playoff ramifications is kind of more important. But I think this is going to be the one where the fireworks are potentially, because I could really see a scenario where both of these teams go off, or I think it's guaranteed at least one of them does. The reason I'm going with Great Scott is that they've got those 15 points there. Amon-Ra should be back and he should eat. Goff's on the other side, so that obviously neutralizes that. I'm obviously assuming Chase will play with this one, and obviously if there's no Higgins and Chase is out there, that's obviously great news for Jeff. I don't like White against Tennessee so much, but Gibbs, they have talked about using him a bit more now. Obviously the genie's out of the bottle a bit perhaps, where he obviously got featured a bit more when Monty was injured. I think the Jags are going to have to pass really to kind of score a bit more on the Niners, because obviously run defense wise that they are fairly good. And then I really actually like the kicker choice this week, Chase McLaughlin. He scored 17 points last week. If I didn't have Aubrey, I would have gone with him, because the Texans have a pretty stout red zone defense, and the Tennessee Titans are kind of similar. They're not the best defenses, but they're obviously quite hard-nosed, being Mike Vrabel team, and the Bucks suck in the red zone. They're not too bad at moving the ball, so that all spells fairly good news for him. Whereas for Pat, again, I could see a good week, but a lot of these guys, as I said, we've just seen them waning a bit. Goff should be okay. Probably not exciting, but again, it depends how run heavy they're going to be against this Chargers team. Olave and Kamara, again, good players. This Vikings defense has been fairly sneaky good, and then you've got Taysom Hill to worry about, and it's hard to call. Najee Harris has been better. Green Bay's an okay running back matchup, so we'll see on that one. And Ken Walker, again, he's a guy that you mentioned is kind of cooled a bit. Yes, it's a fairly soft matchup, and they're at home. Maybe they go back to the run, try and get him going, or maybe Charbonnet gets the work. Maybe he's a bit banged up, because he has been on the injury report here and there. So yeah, I feel a bit better about Great Scott this week. absolutely both these teams could win. At will have a good week, but yeah, it just feels like a great Scott win here for me this week. We'll go on to the last game of the week now then. Bare Necessities take on Thomas and Friends. Aren't you glad we saved this one till last, ladies and gentlemen? 3-6 Bare Necessities and 2-7. Ross's team both have a combined losing streak of 7. Most of that is my dad's team with 5. My dad's team is projected to win in an absolutely thrilling 68-63 point projected score win. You'll see why in a second. My God, what a game. So Bare Necessities is unchanged because they have a kicker and Puka Nakua on a bye. So he's currently rocking the 31 personnel, 3 running backs, receiver on bye and a tight end on the other side of the board. We also have 2 players on bye, a kicker and a tight end in Travis Kelce, and also T. Higgins that's been ruled out. So Ross is currently fielding the 12 personnel, 1 running back, 2 tight ends and 2 wide receivers. The history of this matchup all time, Bare Necessities are 8-4 against Ross's team. And just going back and just double checking injuries. Sierra Chase questionable with that back injury. Definitely want to monitor Josh Downs. I believe he did travel. He's very questionable though because he got knocked out of the game last week. Justin Jefferson not likely to return this week from his hamstring injury. Back to this one, Chris. I want some really detailed analysis, and since you haven't used it yet, I can't wait to see which way your lock is going.
Best till last. Best till last.
Hold on. Wait.
Yeah. Very much so. Right then, let's see if we can get it. So let's assume Debo's coming back in.
Yeah. I mean, Hollywood Brown could come in as well. Javonte Williams, because Buffalo suck. Probably, yeah.
Oh, who cares? I mean, look. If let's be honest, if Debo comes back in, that's okay. And then you've got Bijan, who should be used more against the Arizona defense. You know, you've got the Bills playing Denver's in a funk. You got Edwards playing Cleveland, which is horrendous. So Mixon against Houston, which could be better, I think, this week maybe. And Hockenson is an option against New Orleans, who is going to shut down some receivers, especially as there's very few receivers left in that team. Questionable he is. Lamar's got to be the key to this team. You know, got to be the key to this team. Yes, he had a blowout 40-point game in 3 games ago, but in amongst that, 9, 19, 13 and 11 is just not going there. He's not getting the goal line stuff as he would usually. But Gus Edwards is there. But I say I don't like it against that Browns D. They are good. They are good. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
On the other side, Prescott, will he need to do a great deal in this game? I'm not sure that he will. Diggs is great. Obviously Higgins out, so you bring in. I would have thought Kittle. Or Engram maybe against.
Well, they'll both have to come in because Kelce and Higgins are both on.
Kelsey's in there as well.
Yeah.
So okay, we're going for tight end central here. But do I like Kittle, Engram, and Andrews against the opposition that they're playing against? Not especially. And Jonathan Taylor away from home in Germany, much better recently. I think they're going to put the ball in his hands a great deal, but yeah, and say Patriots against Indy as well. Not so keen on that. Plus no kicker. Oh God, who cares? Ross has been pretty. I'll give it. Ross has been pretty consistent over the last few weeks, but only because their QB has been playing. Bare Necessities should be a better team than they are, but they just haven't sort of turned into that this week.
It fills me with the joy that you have to lock one of these teams.
Bare Necessities lock probably because there's just a little bit more upside. I say a little bit more upside than what I see on the other side, which isn't a great deal there either. He's going to have to hope for some real performances from Diggs and then whichever of the tight ends turns up and scores touchdowns. But yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I got Bare Necessities again. Let's go with it.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Benitez here as well. Yeah, he's caught Ross on a good week, to be fair, where he's got some injury and bye problems, and like you say, neither of the quarterback options are necessarily particularly great, because if Prescott doesn't get in on the party early, he's not going to get much opportunity to do so. Doesn't really need to add much more than that, I think. And like you say as well, Ross's team, three straight weeks over 90 points, but only has a 1-2 record to show for it over that time. So he has been a little hard done by in that regard as well. So cool. And injury wise, so Higgins has been ruled out. Hawkinson questionable, but I think he'll be fine. Nothing else there. So that brings us to the end of the show. So thank you for joining us as always, Chris. So I did put the title of this episode was the Co-Host Is Unhinged. It was a less unhinged performance, but a very good one all the same.
Yeah, you can't be unhinged every week, otherwise it's persona, isn't it? So, I just got to go away for 3 weeks, build it up and bottle it up, and then, bring the heat.
Indeed. Cool, so that brings us to the end. So we hope you have a good weekend. Oh yeah, if you want to, I'm around on Sunday, so if you want to watch the games of mine on Sunday, you're more than welcome to do so. But beyond that, obviously hope you have a nice weekend. Best of luck in your matchups, unless you're playing me, of course. Goodbye, everybody.